the Agrikore blockchain, for the first phase, three main contracts, which is the heart of agricultural produce delivery and production in general in the community, was implemented. So these three main core agreements are produce delivery process contracts, how produce gets from the farms to commodity buyers or to the market, and through storage. This is a very important process that is key to how food gets to the table in the world in general. Then agricultural loans are also very important. Much of agricultural productivity is a result of agricultural loans being accessible to farmers and those who produce livestock and crops. And the third is the agricultural grants and subsidies, and also a very key part of the agricultural production community. So we'll be looking at all those three processes in details and the principles behind how they were implemented in Agrikore. For produce delivery process, the current way it works is this. It usually starts off with maybe a commodity buyer or a big buyer in a market desiring to purchase some amount of produce. For this example, we'll consider rice. So $1 million worth of rice, and the commodity buyer needs to purchase that. So the commodity buyer starts off with an off-taker, which is an agent or an employee of this commodity buyer that goes to the farms to purchase that rice. The commodity buyer needs to trust the off-taker with a substantial amount of money. Should he give them $1 million to go to the farms and purchase the rice? With such amount of money, this individual is now in a position where they could be tempted with that amount of money. So a lot of trust is needed. What usually happens actually in reality is this off-taker is provided only a small amount of money, so they can provide down payments to farmers, and they usually provide the farmers what is called a e-warehouse receipt, which is a paper receipt signed that is proof of the produce that the farmer has delivered to the off-taker. And then the off-taker gets that produce from the warehouse to the commodity buyer, and after some time, a week, 2 weeks, the farmer is now in a position to cash that receipt. This process obviously is very constraining. One, the off-taker is limited by how much produce they can purchase and how quickly they can get produce to the commodity buyer. And two, the farmer is also constrained by the need to trust off-takers that sometimes they do not know. And therein steps a lot of other bodies, agricultural cooperative bodies, a village aggregator, usually someone who has a lot of liquidity or capital, or even companies and organizations that inject liquidity and actually pay the farmers for those e-warehouse receipts and then later on cash it off the commodity buyer. Cellulant is also involved a lot in this process, but the process now is a lot more complicated. There's a lot more third party in between, and it doesn't work as well as it should without the need for the amount of trust that is required in this current process. So we're going to look at how this is done in Agrikore. So the farmer continue with this process. The off-taker takes the little cash that's been provided to go and purchase the produce, and they take it to the market and they negotiate with the farmers and they purchase the produce from them and they give them those signed paper receipts. And after that, they deliver those to the commodity buyer, and the e-warehouse receipt now has the force that can be redeemed by the farmer, and the farmer now cashes that off the commodity buyer. Now, as explained before, that process is very flawed and results in produce wastage, an inefficient process for getting the produce to the market and to commodity buyers. With Agrikore, running on Agrikore, the process is different. The way it works now is starting with that commodity buyer wishing to purchase the same amount of rice. What he just simply does is he sets up a guaranteed order on the blockchain. And to do that, he places the amount of money for the order that he wants to make $1 million worth of rice, he could actually place this in little bits. He could start off with 300,000. And when he does that and he placed 300,000 in the blockchain reserve for a granted order, a new kind of cash in quotes is created, and it's called the derived moolah. So the main cash on the blockchain is the moolah, and a kind of cash is a derived moolah, which is called moolah B here, and it has certain programmatic qualities. And one is that it's like cash, but it is not spendable until some point in time. It sits in the account in the wallet like cash. It has a balance, and it will become converted to moolah. It will be redeemable after some point in time. So that moolah is a new feature added on the Agrikore blockchain. It exchanges or redeems back to the moolah at a roughly 1-to-1 ratio. Now, when the commodity buyer obtains that moolah, it actually comes at a small margin. So the blockchain retains a fee in the reserve for providing those trusted privileges. So if you look at this, it's kind of almost like an escrow, where the blockchain serves as an escrow and the means of trust between the farmer and the off-taker, which is an agent acting on behalf of the off-taker. Now, once the farmer has the derived moolahs in their account, they can authorize a commodity buyer acting on behalf to issue those in payment for commodities. Now, the farmer no longer just receives a piece of paper for a amount of cash, for a small amount of cash for the produce. They actually receive a virtual cash for the full amount of what they have sold, and in time that value can be redeemed on the blockchain. So they receive that, it shows up on their account. They can use their mobile app to view that, and after the delivery, the farmer redeems that on the blockchain for actual cash. Now, this saves the farmer the need to travel to the city or in the location of the commodity buyer at some allotted time. It reduces a lot of traveling within the system, besides simply the produce going from the warehouse to the commodity buyer, and of course the off-taker making the trips to the farms to negotiate with the farmers. And as mentioned, the actual redemption of those receipts for cash takes place on the blockchain the way that the farmer is happy. He gets his money for the produce that he sold. So even for if an off-taker, an off-taker with some liquidity that takes the produce, not even working as an agent for a commodity buyer, but on his own behalf, can complete the same process and place funds on the blockchain and obtain receipts, cash equivalent, derived cash that can be used to pay farmers, giving him time to get to the markets to sell those commodities and continue that way. So it's almost like a top-up. You could open a granted order for $1 million, put in 100,000, be able to purchase from farmers, and then get to the market and sell those. And in about 2 weeks, the farmer will be able to redeem value of those receipts of the blockchain. And once sold, the off-taker could now put in back an additional 100,000 after selling the first batch, and so on, and continue. So this process provides liquidity for the produce delivery process, reduces the need for trust between the participants by assuring the terms of the loan. Right? It's Ricardian because it sets up the agreement, and it also sets up the means of enforcing it. The farmers get the enforcement because they get their paid after some time. And it reduces the need for, as mentioned before, for the farmer to need to travel to redeem their receipt. It reduces the need for third parties who are like receipt caching, provide receipt caching capabilities, and of course they take off more commissions from the farmer to provide those services. And this process, as mentioned, can also be applied to just the off-taker purchasing produce to sell on the market.